Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Succeed with Crio, an Alumni Connect initiative. We have a special guest with us today, Mayuri. Hey, welcome, Mayuri.
Yeah, hey Ratina, hey folks, happy to be here.
Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot for taking time out and spending time with the Crio community today.
Yeah,
I think for the benefit of audience, this is a regular Alumni Connect initiative we do with our alumni, and primarily with the objective of interacting with our current students as well as the prospective students and sharing the insights on their journey and hoping that it will be beneficial for all of you. Today we have Mayuri, who is a recent Crio grad and who's currently working with Myntra, and she has agreed to spend some time with us and share some insights. I think let's get started. Mayuri, why don't you probably uh, introduce yourself in terms of your background, kind of where did you graduate from, right? What's kind of your background before coming to Crio, right? And then let's go from there.
yeah. So I did my bachelor's in EC from Triple IT Pune in 2015. Post that, I went on to work with Infosys for 2 years.
Okay.
So in Infosys, I worked on two projects. Like I was working with Infosys Labs. That was my first project, where we were designing some security algorithms for some of our clients. And then the next project was for a German cash and carry client. Post that, I did my master's in computer science from NIT Trichy. I graduated in 2019. And after that, I worked with Telstra. Telstra is an Australian telecommunications firm. So I worked there very briefly, like I worked there for around 7 months. And I was working as a QA engineer there. And post that, I think since March, from March 2020, I was working with a startup called as Khosla Labs. So I was working as a backend engineer there. I was there with them till June 2021. And yeah, since last year, I have been working with Myntra as a senior software engineer, and I work with the logistics platform system team. So basically, getting the order from the seller and getting delivered to the customer, that life cycle is what my team handles in Myntra. Yeah, so that's my background for everyone here.
Great. I think awesome. I think you've seen kind of quite a variety in the journey so far, right? I think you've been part of the services company, being part of a QE role. Then now we are in a kind of a product engineer role in one of the leading tech firms, right?
Yeah.
So uh, I think talking about your upskilling journey, right? So how did you land at Crio, right? So how did you find Crio? What were you looking at when you want to kind of come to Crio at that point in time?
So, so there were like multiple aspects which made me basically look out for some kind of a learning platform in 2020.
Okay.
My role at Telstra was a QA role. And after working with Telstra and working in that role, I realized that QA is not my cup of tea. Like testing is not something that I can do. So I started looking internally in the company first. That is where I could not. That was not like I was not given a developer role. So then I started looking out, and I landed at this startup.
Got it.
So the startup was like it was a very very small team. We were just six engineers in the team, and they were all like people like me who had like 2 or 3 years of experience. There was like a lack of strong leadership, and basically someone to validate what I was doing was what was lacking at that time. And so basically to so that testing so I wanted to basically improve on my development skills, and I wanted to work on applications end to end, because that was what was expected of me in my role in that startup, because we were a very small team and we had to like literally like ship out products over a span of like 3 days. So I wanted to basically work on something end to end. So I started looking out for something similar, where I could basically my target was to work on projects, not just theory. And that is where I came across the Crio backend developer track, which I was part. I think I started in September of 2020. So I think it was the perfect course for me because it was all project based, very less theory, and everything was mostly implementation based. So yeah, I think that is what drove me to learn at Crio.
Great. So what were you kind of like hoping to achieve, right, when you started the journey, right? So I understand. I think you moved from QA to kind of developer role, and probably in the current work, you didn't have an opportunity to do things end to end. So it might be so you're looking to pick up things in development, right? So specifically talking about in development area, like what are you trying to achieve? What were you trying to kind of learn from that journey?
So my focus was very clear. I wanted to focus on backend. So I was specifically looking for a backend kind of like a backend course with projects which could help me basically elevate my learning. And and also because I had some years of experience with me, so I also wanted to focus on system design, and if they could also be a part of that course. So with Cryo's courses, not just so we had like I think 5 or 6 projects, and basically we were given requirements and we had to design the application. But there were also a lot of other constructs, like there was caching involved, and there was we had to test our applications very very extensively. So all that basically you know what was like drove me to take up that course, because it was very similar to how you work in, say, any product company or any company for that matter. That is how the code bases are designed, that is how you work on multiple services together. You
Yeah.
need to design extensive testing plans, you need to have a very very strong design in your mind. So yeah, that's what it was about.
So generally, I think because of your background, right? I'm just curious and knowing our audience as well, right? So I think you've been in the like services industry. I think the nature of work is slightly different, and you've been in the QA role, right? So like generally, if you have to think about like uh, telling someone who is aspiring to get into a good product company, right, in a good developer role, right, product company or any company with developer role, right? So generally, how was your journey, right, and what would you kind of tell them in terms of starting point?
So there's two things. One is the QA thing and the services thing. I think getting into a product company from a services company is not that tough,
Mm.
because if suppose you are in a developer role in a services company, and if if you keep say if you keep practicing your data set algorithms, and if you keep reading on system design, I think you can pretty much, I think, land in a good product role. The problem arises when you are in a QA role,
Mm.
because because to bridge that gap, because a lot of companies would straight away be like, okay, why should we hire you into developer role when you all you have is like a QA experience. So what I would suggest for people who are looking for that switch is that you do something like a Cryo course, or you take up projects on the side. You practice your DS algo and everything, and probably I think you can not probably, I think for sure you can land up in a software role. It would be a bit difficult, and maybe in later stages of the interview you'd have to convince your interviewer as to why you're looking for a developer role. But I think if you have the right reasons, I think any company is pretty much okay with taking up people from the software testing role as well.
It's very insightful. I think the nuance you mentioned is very important, right? This is what we are saying, right? It's not just about knowing programming, probably just knowing DSA. Especially when you're coming from a non-core development part, you have to prove your the tech skills through some demonstrated some experience,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's definitely that's there. Like you would have to showcase some developer work.
I
That
think
is
at least that shows the intent also. It's not just this guy is just wishing to move, or this person is just wishing to move. He has taken some initiative.
yeah,
If
yeah, yeah,
production work somewhere, personal projects and platforms like Crio or on their own, at least that will show the intent also very clearly.
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, I think bringing back to Crio experience, right? So how was your journey, right? So I think you mentioned your goal was to get the end-to-end product development experience, right? So just breaking it down, what are the elements you kind of picked up? How was your journey over the course of those 4-5 projects and 6 months for you?
So there were like a bunch of things. First was I think I the first thing I learned was understanding the requirements first. And this is very important even in your developer. When you are working as a developer, you need to understand the requirements even before you start coding.
Got
You
it.
need to understand and question the requirements, and then you can start to code. That is what I think I understood. I learned from all of the projects which were there in Cryo. Second was having an extensive test plan,
Mm.
basically testing your application end to end, whether it can be through unit test or Mockito or some kind of integration testing. That is what, yeah, that is was also a learning point for me. And
Okay.
other than that, there were a lot of I think extra sessions which were taken on schema design, and there was caching, and I think there was system design, which helped me a lot because I was targeting senior software roles.
Got it.
So that was an additional help that I got.
Got it.
And yeah, I also learned to write very, very clean and concise code because there were frameworks which would detect mistakes, and it would point out, and that sort of became my habit even now. Like it just sort of became my habit, and I automatically started to write clean and concise code. So yeah, all these were my takeaways from the course.
Yeah, I think the check style is very irritating, but I think it's a good thing to
Yeah,
learn.
yeah, 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 yeah. Like I remember like test cases failing and the not getting passed for like so long, and I'm like struggling at it for so long, but I think it was worth it at the end.
I think it's definitely a eventful journey for a lot of our users, right? So, in this overall journey, what did you enjoy the most, right? What did you enjoy the most, right? If you had to like recollect, right? What was it like? Yeah, you enjoyed the most.
Um, I think overall, yeah, I think overall I loved the course, how it was structured. I think it was very, very well structured. Uh, Basically, like the concepts that you learn in college,
Mm-hmm.
getting to implement them hands on, I think is very fun. And also I think the struggle was very fun. I remember like I think there were two types of projects where I think one was where you had help, and the other was you had to like do it on by yourself. The ones which you had to do by yourself, I remember being stuck at them for days and days and like weeks and weeks, and then finally when you resolve that bug and get that satisfaction, I think that was really amazing. And also I really enjoyed the extra sessions, the sessions which were taken on solid principles and schema design and system design. I think I really, really enjoyed all those sessions as well.
I think you touched upon the clean code part, right? But
Yeah.
generally, like what kind of improvements you have seen in your design or in your way of coding, like pre and post the projects you have done at Creo?
Um, Firstly, it's like giving very sensible variable names, uh, eliminating the redundant code, basically try and optimize your logic,
Mm.
try and cut out the logic which is not needed. Uh, Next, uh, having good indentation. I think all these things, yeah.
Okay. And I think, yeah, I think you touched upon, like, for example, you were in mostly QE roles, and probably even in the previous development role, you were probably not doing end to end, right? So now,
Mhm.
now that you are in a role where you get to build products end to end, right? So
Mhm.
how do you compare Cryo's projects with your real life experience, with your what are the similarities you have seen?
I think Cryo's projects, I think the code base is pretty much the same uh, to a code base, say when I was like when I'm working Myntra, or say when I was working in the backend role in that startup. I think it's pretty much designed the same way. So there's a like to go like technically into it, like there will be a controller layer, there will be a service layer, there will be a test layer, and you can add a facade and so on. So I think it's pretty much exactly the same as to what you would encounter when you start working in an organization. So I think it's uh, you're basically I think it's a kickstart for you if you do the course beforehand. So that is what I think you would be like miles ahead of people when you join in a new role, because I think the basics and everything would be clear, and then you could focus on bigger things, say like optimizations or suggesting improvements to the product team or something.
Got it. I think now that we are talking about how real it is, right? So at least what is your experience of having these projects in any of interviews, right? Was it helpful for you either from the perspective of like getting shortlisted or talking about some of the questions which comes across in the general interviews, right? How was this project helpful for you in your interviewing journey?
Um, I think, yeah, the projects were definitely helpful when I was interviewing, because so not just like on my, say, on my resume,
Got
but
it.
they also made a big difference in how I would tackle problems.
Got
So
it.
I think that makes a big difference when you start to interview.
Got it.
Coming to the resume part of it, I think, yeah, I think every employer or every interviewer would appreciate a person having having experience working on projects apart from the work that they have done.
Got
So
it.
yeah, I think definitely, I think this course will be an add-on to anyone who takes it up.
I think yeah, probably when you tried it, you already started doing that role in the startup, right? So it would have given you some edge from a CV perspective, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you imagine yourself, let's say you are in a QE role, right, which was before you joining the startup, right? So like I think a lot of our users are in this question where the current work may not have a lot of development work, right? So what is your sense, right? Do you think it will be, how helpful do you think it will be in the interviewing process based on your experience? What you have seen?
Um,
For someone who's in a QA role, right? So having these kind of projects in their CV, do you think they'll help them in what way in the interviewing process?
I think, yeah, I think these projects definitely will help you, because you can always uh, like to tell the interviewer that you have worked on an application end to end.
Hmm.
You can tell them what all you implemented.
Got it.
So I think that can sort of compensate for not having a developer experience, because even though you may not do it in your day-to-day work, you did it on the side. I think that counts for it. And as I said, the projects are very, very well structured, and they are exactly what you would do in a product company. So I think that would help them in interviews.
Awesome. How was your journey of like managing work as well as like an upskilling journey? I especially working in a startup, right? A lot of
Yeah, I think honestly it was not very easy. Like I think the first month I did it pretty quickly, because I think the coursework was less and the project had not started yet. But later I think I really struggled. I think I remember completing three projects in a span of, I think, 45 days, and not doing anything for 2 months because I really did not have the bandwidth. So yeah, I'm like, it was tough to manage both work and the course. But I think, yeah, I think if you plan your days, I think you can do it. Maybe like take out a few hours during the day, and probably on the weekends if you manage. I think it's pretty much doable.
so generally, I think from the perspective of someone who's looking to currently going through Crio program or exploring program like this, right? So I think let's talk about first that for someone who's actually going through Crio program, right? So what would be your kind of inputs or advice to them in terms of how they can leverage it better, how they can get maximum out of it, right? So what would be, we just reflect on your journey, right? What would you say to them?
Um, from my personal experience, what I would say is be very, very thorough with your course. There are so apart from how the course is structured, I think each unit also has a lot of extra information given at the end, where there are links to resources, where there are links to blogs which you can read. I think you should definitely read them, because they are definitely an add-on, and they help you get a little deeper into the concept that you have learned. Other than that, uh, what I would suggest is try taking minimal help from anywhere. Say the solution guide or your TAs, like struggle at it. you may be stuck at it for weeks, but just keep at it, because getting help, I mean, getting help is pretty easy, but I think when you struggle and when you uncover or debug that bug that was there, I think that sort of learning you will not get, say, if you got a help, or if some PA helped you. So secondly, that, and yeah, and attend all the extra sessions which are there, which are scheduled like by default. Even if you're not able to attend, listen to the recordings, and basically be thorough with everything that is there in the course. I think it's pretty much uh, I think self encompassing, and I think you would not need anything else apart from if you are thorough with the course. So yeah, that's what I would like to say.
I think very thoughtful. I think so. We have tough time convincing our users. You should actually try for some time before seeking help. It's not like we don't want to help, right? We want you to help. It's not a problem. I think
Yeah.
learning otherwise, right? So yeah, I think it takes some time for them to realize that.
Yeah.
I think talking about like a lot of prospective users, right? We might want to like try out Crio, right? Or not just Crio, any kind of upskilling initiative, right? So I think generally speaking, like a lot of people are either currently looking for new opportunities, or in their current role they're underemployed from the perspective of they can do much better in terms of quality of work as well as earning potential, right? And then they landed somewhere because of whatever reason, right? So, and I think you have some part of your journey, you're kind of continuously improved whatever you're doing, and you've gone to the better quality of work and the earning potential. We're also seeing the market today, right, in terms of good qualified person, how much somebody can earn, what is the opportunity out there, right? So, what would you tell to someone who is probably currently underemployed but not really confident to take that first step, right? Like and probably the exposure to opportunities is very limited, right? So if you're just around with the people who are okay with whatever they're doing, then probably you just stuck at it. I think that happens with all of us, right? So generally, what would you say to someone who is probably not realizing the fullest potential, probably like stuck at something, whatever they're doing, right? And probably they're not very confident to take that next step, right? So, like, you have to just based on your experience of what you have seen and
Yeah.
opportunity see in the market, right? What would be your inputs to them?
So I'll tell this purely from my experience and my experience alone. Um I like my drive to do better was always there with me. So even when I wanted, so when I was assigned a QA role, I knew that I wanted to get out of it, and I got out of it. When I was working with a startup, I knew I had to, not that the work was bad, but I knew that I could do better in terms of, say, pay, or in terms of, say, the work. So I think the first thing is you need to have that drive.
Mm.
You need to realize that you can do better and you deserve to be somewhere better. That is the first thing, because that is what will motivate you to take up things.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think for me it's been a long journey, like uh, landing at Myntra, it was not say a matter of months. It was a cumulative, maybe like 1.5 years of effort. Not just the cryo course. Like I always kept reading or practicing DS Algo, or taking up some course or the other, and also my work at my startup. I think I tried to deep dive into my work as much as possible. Like I tried to get everything out of my work from that startup. So yeah, it's you. Like I think it might not come easy, and you would have to keep at it. Like I remember going through tons and tons of rejections uh, to land here. Like it's don't be disappointed, and just keep at it and believe in yourself, and just keep learning is what I would say. Like as long as you keep learning, as long as you keep reading about stuff and keep practicing, I think there's nothing that can take success away from you, is what I would say.
I think it's quite. Thanks being very candid, and it's definitely very inspirational for a lot of people, right? So I think I think it has to start from within, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It has to start from within, and then once you have the drive, of course, the people around you, uh, even the community, I think you'll find a lot of help, right? The moment you are motivated, I think even others are willing to help, and then
And to put across one point, I think there's like a lot of opportunities in the market right now. Like the market is flooded with opportunities. So if you are really skilled and if you're really capable, I think you would have like a lot of opportunities in your hand.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
And
just that, yeah,
today even our graduates, right, the people who do really well, almost like a 45% of our graduates have like more than one offer at any given
yeah,
point,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's like a market norm, right? uh,
yeah,
yeah, when somebody is really qualified and getting an opportunity is never a problem. Yeah,
yeah.
great, awesome. I think that's pretty much I had in terms of list of things I want to talk about. I think I'll give me a second, I'll probably quickly check the question. I think we'll spend some time on going through the Q&A. Okay, give me a second, I'll just quickly check it and come back to this. Yeah, Shreya, can you just share it in the YouTube chat? So share it. Okay, I think let it come up. I think so. Do you want to talk a bit more about your current work, right? And like I think probably for a lot of aspiring engineers, right? So typically, how does your typical week look like, right? How does your typical day look like, right? So could you talk a bit more about it? Maybe
Yeah,
probably.
so yeah, we work in sprints at Myntra, and usually there's some kind of product requirement which is assigned to each developer. So there's usually an architect and a developer working on that requirement. So architect is there to architect and you both together can work on the design part of it, the LLD and the HLD part of it, and then the implementation can be then taken up by the developer. So typically, yeah, what my day looks like is so yeah, it's like it's a mix of say meetings and if there are any product discussions, we do that, and then there's implementation work if there's something like that, and there can be some testing support that you would have to give for some previous work that you did, or you might have to work with so there are like a lot of teams in Myntra, so you might have to work with different teams on the integration testing part of it, and yeah, I think that's how the day goes about, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I think let me just check the questions. We can move on there. Let me just quickly share this. So I'll just go through relevant questions so that we can talk one by one. I think there is a couple of questions about how did you get a chance to interview at Myntra, right? Was it a referral from Crio? Did you got your own? I think the question about how did you get a chance to interview at Myntra was another question. You want to quickly talk
So with
about?
Myntra, I had applied through their company portal. It was not a referral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My question was how was you able to target directly for a senior software role coming from a QA role? I think probably they missed about your
Yeah. So yeah, I did not target for a senior software role directly. I worked as a back-end engineer for around 1.5 years, and post that, yeah, I went for a senior software role.
uh, I think there's a question about how important DSL go for SD1 roles, how important DSA compared to the projects you have.
Okay, data structures and algorithms, I think, is the first step to clearing interviews. Like you would, I think normally you would have a test and then you would have like a couple of rounds of DS algo. So I think that is the first step in how you would basically progress in your interview cycle. And I think with DS algo, there's also one more thing that it also improves your analytical and logical capabilities. So it would, I think it would definitely also help you in your work apart from, say, just clearing interviews.
It's a little bit generic question. Probably you can see. Like I think it's primarily about how did you probably approach your DSA preparation. Probably you can talk about it.
I think yeah. So basically, like I had a like I come from a computer science background, so I had the coursework supporting that. Also, apart from that, I think I would always practice on lead code and keep your concepts clear and basically solve a lot of problems. Is what I would say is how you can take up, how you can approach the like data structures and algorithms.
Question about why QA role to developer role.
See, nothing like it's a personal preference. I have nothing against any kind of role. I just thought that I would be more suited in a developer role, is I think what I thought, and that's why I went for it.
Yeah, I think it's just a. I think one thing I could add on top of it, like yeah, QA roles are not just always manual QA roles, right? A lot of QA roles
Yeah,
also
yeah,
a lot more complicated, like technically complex, right? You do automation and stuff, but
yeah,
generally you should be a little bit worried about your future career if you're probably in a manual QA role, right? Then you should think about like in terms of the value you could add potentially and the growth path.
yeah,
There also, if it's a very functionally complex domain, you bring in a lot of functional knowledge with that, right? So as Mayuri mentioned, there's nothing wrong as long as you enjoy it and you see there is a future in what you're doing, right? And your value keep increasing. I think that's one way to think about. Does it make sense for me to continue what I'm doing, right? So
There's one more thing that is happening with companies these days is they are combining QA role, like they are asking the software engineers to do the QA work. Like basically what you develop, you test it. So there's also like a lot of QA roles are getting eliminated like not, I'm not saying with every company, but yeah, a lot of companies have started to do this, that you basically test out the code that you have written.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think yeah, the thing is, as long as whatever your role you're doing, if you think you are learning and growing from that, and you see potential for that role, I think that's probably one good proxy for you to keep and think about it, right? Yeah, especially if you're a manual QA role, yeah, a lot of companies are moving towards like a full-fledged developer doing testing and a bit of automation, right?
Yeah.
So that's also kind of puts your future growth prospects in question.
Yeah.
I think the other question is, so there are a few questions which is probably not so relevant for Mayuri. I'm going to skip it. I'm just saying this for audience, right? You can always reach out to us, to Crio team if you want to get that answer for that. Right? We also have some career guidance sessions we conduct on a weekly basis where you can join. Right? So there are questions like, I'm from non-technical background. What do I do? I'm going to skip some of those questions. Right? So I'll probably bring up only whatever might be relevant for Mayuri here. Okay? Next question is about what is your tech stack in your day-to-day work?
So I work with Java and Python, and then for databases there's MongoDB and MySQL, and yeah, in the cache side I work on Redis and cache. Yeah, so that's pretty much the tech stack that I work with. And yeah, in the message, I think for messaging queues, I think we use Kafka and Airbus. So
I'm going to skip again a few questions about very specific personal career questions. Okay. I would recommend audience to probably sign up for trial and then you get to do a kind of a career guidance session as part of it. So that may be a right place for you to ask these questions. I will read out the next question. I think you can. Should I take Crio course? Is it worth spending time and money in it? I have 5 lakh per annum offer. Will joining the same after how much CTC will be increased? I don't think anyone can say this. I think probably you can just generally share about how you think it could be valuable.
Sorry.
The question is, should I, like, the person has already, let's say, an offer for whatever 5 lakh LPA, and he's saying, like, should I take this? Right? I think, I'm not sure how relevant it's for you. I think it's up to you completely. I think it's about what you want to do. I think Crio course is not a place to improve your salary alone, right? So I mean, you want to learn whatever you want to learn, and of course that the salary will be byproduct of it, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think there is a question about what project do you have in your resume of, like, I think they're asking about, did you add some of the Crio projects to your CV?
I did add it, but it was just like they were not like, I did not add them extensively, but they were like pointers on my resume saying that I did work on a food delivery app and a stock trading app, so I did that. Yeah.
I think there's a bit of a generic question. Do you think something like Crio can help freshers, and how can it help?
I think, yeah, I think why not? Because as I said, you would be working on exactly something similar to what you would say end up working when you are a developer. So I think that experience would set you apart, not just in interviews, but even when you start working. So I guess definitely, I think this course would be a big help.
I think one thing I would add, I think the student landscape is not something probably the time when we graduated, right? I think I see a lot of students doing freelancing and actually doing remote internships, whatnot, right, while they're in college.
Yeah.
With all the remote and not going to college, right? So I think being a student doesn't block you in doing anything. I think probably that's the best thing for you to, like, learn. Next question is about, you specifically work on which backend language and framework? I think we talked about it. I think the next question is about how much depth of DSA we need to get into company like Myntra.
I would say pretty much, I think everything that is there. So graphs, BFS, DFS, I think you do need it, because I remember those were some of the questions that were asked to me in my interviews. So I think, yeah, pretty much all of it. That is what I would say, at least for a company like Myntra. There are some companies which choose to skip dynamic programming and graphs and stuff like that, but I won't say that is the case with Myntra.
Next question is also open-ended. How did you prepare for an interview? What is your broad approach to prepare for an interview?
So basically, you need to decide the timeline in which you want to interview, because that is how you can prepare. So say if you just have 2 months, then you need to divide your time accordingly. You cannot then go on practicing every day. You need to say pick up 10 questions from each topic of DSA, be thorough with it, and get done with it. So I think the timeline is very important. And as I said, for DS Algo, if you have time, just practice and practice and practice. That is what will make you better. For anybody targeting senior roles, for system design, there's a lot of material available online. There are books available. So again, based on the timeline, you can be very thorough with your preparation, or you can say pick a handful of, say, 10 system design problems and understand how they are done, and then prepare. But yeah, I think all this being said, you need to be very clear with your basics. So your DS Algo concepts have to be very clear, and your computer science fundamentals have to be very clear. Say like network theory and databases and computer organization. All these concepts have to be very clear. So yeah.
I think there is a lot of questions about how was your like a DSA in Crio. I think one thing to clarify to the audience, I think Mayuri
Yeah,
didn't do the full-fledged fellowship program. She went through mostly the back-end development part of Upskilling
yeah.
program. So uh, I'll skip one of those questions. Yeah. So there's one more question. Like you said, the startup work helped you prepare, right, better. And if someone has not worked end to end before, would Crio course alone prepare him/her for cracking interviews?
Um, yeah, it can. Depends on what kind of roles you are targeting. Like if you're targeting, say, a SD1 role, I think most of the interview rounds are DS Algo, and I think the last round is the hiring manager round. I think you're not asked to design a system in that case. But say if you're targeting a senior software role, I think what I would suggest is along with the course, you would also have to read up a bit about system design and basically, so that is what I would say.
Yeah. I think to add on it, right? So yeah, so if you're actually looking for SD1 roles, right? So I think what would Crio program? I think so now there are programs which has DSA as well, right? Which almost we cover for like 50-60% of the time. The remaining part of the program which actually covers the development foundations. I think which should be sufficient for SD1 roles, right? So for SD2 roles or senior engineer roles, just having coursework may not completely justify a senior engineer experience. They look for some experience along with that. Right? So if you're looking at SD1 roles, entry level developer roles, this should actually solve for most of the projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of questions about career services, placement support, all of that. I think so. Mayuri went through the upskill programs, which is primarily back-end development program, not the fellowship program. So some of those questions cannot be relevant for her. So I'll skip that. I think next question was how did you prepare for interviews? Right, generally one is having skills. Second is probably about preparing for interviews in itself is a process, right? So could you share your general approach of how did you approach preparing for interviews? What are the broad areas you focused on?
uh, so as I said, like I think like 2 months before, when I would basically ideally be, ideally start taking the interviews, is when uh, I think practiced and practiced my DS algo, and yeah, read up a lot about system design and designing systems end to end. Like when I was interviewing, I would prepare according to the round which was there. So say if it was a DS algo round tomorrow, then I would brush up, maybe solve 5 6 questions before the interview tomorrow. If there's a system design round tomorrow, then I would look up some of the design problems. So I think it would be very specific to the interview rounds which were there. And yeah, and if the last round, which is the hiring manager round, said, then you basically brush up your resume. You have to be very, very thorough with your resume. You need to explain whatever is there in your resume. That is what I forgot to tell, because your resume is a very important thing, and you cannot fake anything in your resume, and neither should you. And you should be very, very clear, because they do pick out stuff from your resume and ask you about it. So you have to be very clear about it. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's all.
I think there's a general question about probably interview rounds in Myntra. I think probably not necessarily just your round. I think it may be useful for the entire audience to just talk about, let's say, a company like Myntra. For SD1, what would be the interview process? I think that may be relevant for a lot of this audience.
I may be wrong, but I think from how much I know, I think the first round is a test, which comprises of, I think, 2 or 3 coding questions and some computer fundamentals. Uh, I think for SD1, I think there are 3 DS algo rounds and 1 hiring manager round. And for SD2 roles, it's yeah, 1 test, 2 DS algo rounds, 2 system design, and 1 hiring manager round. So that is what the structure is. It might have changed, but I think that is what was at least it was last year.
Cool. Yeah, I think those are the relevant questions. I think it's almost time. Thanks a lot for kind of taking your Friday evening to have a discussion with our community. Right? So I think for audience, I think there's a lot of questions which probably not very relevant for like Mayuri's background. I kind of skipped it, so you can reach out to us through usual channels or any other opportunities. We can definitely have a discussion around it. Right? Yeah, thanks again, Mayuri, I think, for joining and sharing time with our community. Right. So, you have any last words for the Crio community users in terms of their career and their preparation? Again, it would be great to hear from you.
Yeah, as I said, make the most of the course that you are part of. I think it would go a long way. And apart from that, have that drive, have that zeal to, do something good in life. I think that also goes a long way. Yeah, I think that's all. I think everything else, I think I covered. These are the last parting words.
Great, awesome. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining and spending time with us. Right. Thanks everyone for joining this Zakir with Crio session. Right. Have a nice evening. Yeah. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you.